The world watched early Friday as closed-circuit cameras captured Russia shelling Europe's largest nuclear power plant. Russian military forces have seized control of the plant. When asked if the shelling constitutes a war crime, the White House says it is still evaluating what happened.
I mean, obviously, the Russian government's actions were extremely reckless and dangerous. They could have posed a profound threat to the safety of civilians in the region and beyond. We do applaud the ability of the Ukrainian operators to keep all 6 reactors in safe conditions while under attack and to report as they were able to the nuclear regulator.
Russian President Vladimir Putin's willingness to shell a nuclear power plant is extremely reckless and worrisome, a nuclear expert told VOA, even though there is no radiation emergency now.
This is unprecedented, right? There hasn't been an attack in the middle of a war on a civilian nuclear facility like a nuclear reactor. So we will learn a lot going forward, but right now we're just we have to be extremely vigilant.
Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky says Putin has crossed a new threshold.
We survived a night that could have stopped the story, the history of Ukraine, the history of Europe. Russian troops attacked the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Russian tanks knew what they were firing at, directly aiming at the station. This is terror of an unprecedented level.
Zelensky has repeatedly called on NATO to establish a no-fly zone over Ukraine, or else supply Ukraine with the military equipment it needs to defend itself. But NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg rejected those appeals after meeting with EU and NATO foreign ministers in Brussels Friday.
Allies agree that we should not have NATO planes operating over Ukrainian airspace or NATO troops on Ukrainian territory.
Stoltenberg called it a painful decision, explaining that to enforce such a zone, NATO would have to shoot down Russian planes, and that could result in a full-fledged war in Europe. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken also met with NATO leaders in Brussels and faced tough questions about what the alliance could do to help Ukrainian civilians in cities across the country under Russian bombardment. Blinken said the West's unity is hurting Putin, but it will take time.
Yesterday, President Putin said his so-called special military operation is proceeding exactly as planned. Well, it's hard to imagine that his plan included inspiring the Ukrainian people to defend their country with such tenacity, strengthening the resolve and solidarity of NATO and the EU, uniting the world in opposition to Moscow, including 141 countries at the United Nations.
Blinken said Putin can also see that his country's economy is now in free fall. Tens of thousands of Russians have turned out to protest his invasion of Ukraine, and countless others are leaving the country. If that was his plan, it is working, the Secretary of State added. Cindy Saine, VOA News, Washington.